Welcome back to QuickBooks. So today we're actually going to skip a few chapters. Reason being is because this is actually probably one of the more important chapters is to actually start with the setup. Like how do you create a company file to begin with? So we're gonna go ahead and fast forward to go ahead and jump into how do we even create or begin to start our company file. So that's obviously going to be very important, especially when we're learning QuickBooks for the first time. You kind of want to know before even getting started, like you cannot work on a company file if you don't have one that's existing, and they're not going to have templates or anything for you that's already created for you that you can just go ahead and click on and you fill it out yourself. No, it all begins by you creating the working data file, which we're going to be learning today. And there's two ways you can create it. All right, so before, again, we're these are just like topics that we're going to be talking about. I'll cover most of it, but again, because we are looking in chapter 12, we skipped over 10 chapters. We already did chapter 1. So anywhere between chapters 2 through 11, okay, is going to be a big chunk of this chapter. All right, so if you've read ahead, which you should have read last night, you're going to be asked to enter in bills that were prior when you were starting your company file. You also have to enter adjustments. You have to also enter an inventory. All of that will be taught in the later as we go through this class. We will go hit in every single chapter in this book. And I'll go ahead and tell you after we start setting up our company file, the next thing you have to do is set up your chart of accounts. And from there, when we move on after completing your chart of accounts, that's where everything else will fall into line when we move on to learning the other chapters, because they are pretty much I don't want to show you something ahead before when I can just teach it to you that day. So with that being said, one thing that you need to do, of course, is making sure you establish your starting date. So that's very, very important, especially when whether you decide if you're creating your company file based on today, or based if your company has already been existing, but finally today is the day that you start beginning to use QuickBooks to go ahead and utilize its functions to be able to help you manage your transactions a lot more easier. So of course you can imagine Target's been around for a good 100 years now, and you can expect they didn't. Obviously, this software has not existed until maybe less than 20 years ago. Okay, so with that being said, you can assume that Target, if they were to use QuickBooks, they wouldn't date it all the way back to when they began. No, they would actually start as the date that they start using QuickBooks. Now, if you are creating a company file and you are planning to start the books as of today or as of this year because you just established your company, then yes, you're not going to have that many transactions to begin with, and you're starting out with QuickBooks. So again, QuickBooks is a lot more easily manageable, especially when you start off on day one. Now, what QuickBooks recommends, or the book recommends, is if you are an existing company, you want to start on the last day of your fiscal year. Now, if those words are familiar to you, it's okay. I'll act like you don't know accounting. So calendar year is pretty straightforward, right? We start on January 1st, we end on December 31st. Whereas fiscal year, You can start on any month that you like, as long as it's consecutive 12 months. So I could start my fiscal year on June 1st and end my fiscal year on May 30th of that year, or the next year, the following year, whatever it is, right? That's considered a fiscal year, right? Most cases in government, I would say, or government agencies, most of their fiscal years begin July 1st and ends on June 30th. Usually, just because what happens is that in the summertime, they're more likely to not be as super busy because it works out for them. How you decide whether you want to be a calendar year or a fiscal year is actually based on when you file your taxes. So, if it makes sense for your type of business to go through a calendar year or go through fiscal year, it's going to be determined on what kind of business you are, especially if you're selling a product. Now, I'll give you an example. So if I sell Christmas trees, my main busiest year will be probably during the winter time, right? During any time between November to January. Okay. But in the summertime, who wants a Christmas tree during the summertime? Not really many people. So therefore, it makes sense for a company to file their taxes during the summer because they're less busy. Okay, so they would choose a fiscal year versus a calendar year. Now, of course, it's just the easiest way to keep track of, or to even manage your taxes. Ideally, it's just easier to remember January 1st, December 31st. So it really depends on what your busiest years are and when it's appropriate for you to file your taxes, because you can file your taxes year round. However, there is that deadline, right? We all hear about it. For companies, completely separate idea. Individuals, your deadline is what, March or April or something like that. I think it's April 15th. Yes, it's the last day you can file your taxes for you to get a tax return. So that means for the government or for those kind of agencies, their busiest year is during the first quarter of the year. So things like that, okay, like I said again, businesses are completely different. They can file their taxes year round. All right, so that's why it's important to understand when you are establishing a starting date. If you are an existing company, the best start date is going to be the last day of your last fiscal year. Okay, so of course, with that being said, let's say I decided to start using QuickBooks and what's today, February, and my fiscal year's calendar year, right? That means I need to set my starting date as far back as December 31st of 2020. So that means if I start my date there, that means I need to go back and I need to enter in all of the transactions that existed between January 1st all the way to today, which is February 8th. Okay? So that's just the rule of thumb, because they want to ensure that when you do file your taxes, that it's not there, you're not missing information, or you're not going to produce inaccurate reports or anything like that. That's just the rules. Okay. Now, of course, if you are starting your company brand new as of today, okay, then your best start date would be the last day of the last month, which is, or the last month, which is January 31st, right? As in, we're going to start our transactions as of the 31st of January, because the assumption here is if you start on the very first day, you're not only missing out a lot of information, because it's assuming that QuickBooks they already counted the first as part of their transaction. So it causes discrepancies in the account balances. So you always want to start the last day of the last month if your company is brand spanking new. Okay. You can start obviously the day that you establish your company, whatever you'd like. Just make sure that usually a rule of thumb here that they do recommend, if you want perfect and accurate information, you want to start not on the first day of the month, the last day of the last month, because that way you can enter in your transactions as of February 1st.
Got it.
Okay. So with that being said, once you establish that, whether you're a pre-existing company or you're not, and you're a startup fresh company, obviously if like I said, if I'm starting to use QuickBooks and my first transaction was as of today or yesterday, the 8th of February, what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter in any transactions that happened prior, between February 1st to February 8th, February 7th, whatever date that you want to enter it in. That's just rule of thumb. Okay. Now, of course, another thing that you need to do is that on this particular page, so on page 146, what it does is here, I think that's 246, I'm sorry.
346.
346. Yeah, I barely cut that little number over there. But yes, this page is very, very crucial, especially when you are a pre-existing company. Now, again, if you are starting from scratch, the most bare minimum that you'll have is entering your checking account, etc., etc. But this is geared towards these 12 sets to set up your company is geared towards to pre-existing companies, like companies that you've existed prior before QuickBooks was either established, or you decided to today that you decided to switch from manual accounting to actual QuickBooks accounting. Okay. So this one, pretty much rule of thumb is you're obviously going to create your state. You're going to have your start date. You're going to create your company file using the QuickBooks company file setup, which we are going to do right after this. Once you've done that, you're going to create the chart of accounts, and then you're going to enter in open balances. All right, open, and then after that is going to be entering any bills that you have up to there, to anything that's year to date information. So you are going to be looking at entering all your bills that you have owed, entering all the invoices that people owe you. You're also going to update your sales tax if you have to. You're going to have to update your inventory. All of this, okay? So let's start from the top one. Entering bills is chapter 2, and chapter 4. Entering invoices is chapter 2. Entering sales tax is chapter 3. Entering inventory is chapter 8. Entering payroll liabilities or anything payroll related is chapter 10 and 11. And then verifying the trial balance, which again is chapter 6. And then, entering open balances, which we will learn in chapter 13. You're going to be utilizing a journal entry. And then setting the closing date is chapter 13. So all from step, from step 4 all the way to step 12 is what we're going to be learning through the entire course of this class. So again, all of this I'm going to skip right ahead because I don't want to show you something yet. I want to wait till we eventually get there, and then when you do come back to this and you want to practice it on your own, there is a fictitious business. So chapter 14, they give you a preset for a preset template, or it's already been they already created the company file for you. But if that's the case, all this stuff here that we're supposed to be learning throughout the course of the class, right? We're in chapter 12. The assumption is that because this is chapter 12, you should have learned already the steps that happened in between. So again, all of this I'm skipping because I'm going to teach you them one at a time. So, but for now, the least that we could do is at least accomplish steps 1 through 3. All right. So again, creating the start date, right? That's very important. Okay. Now, there's also a step 0 that I do think that is also very, very, very important. In order to create a company file, you first need a list of things that you need to know about your own company. What's your company name? Or what kind of business organization are you? Are you sole proprietor? Are you a partnership? Are you an S corporation? Other things that you have to do to know as well is, do you plan to have employees? What kind of items do you sell? Do you sell services? Do you sell products? Or do you sell both? Other things too is, do you have a physical store? So are you going to charge sales tax? There's more to this than just meets the eye when it comes to starting right away on step 2. You need to have all that information, so then when you do start your easy step interview, which we'll talk about in a second, all the information comes easy to you. But if you haven't even began creating if you haven't even began with the idea of your business in the first place, then you're going to be on step 2 for the longest time. All right. So it's always good that you have at least step 0, which is, what is your company name? Where are you being located? And et cetera, et cetera. Like, what kind of business organization are you? What kind of business activity do you do? What are your ins and outs of your business? Okay. But if that's the case and you are kind of weary, or maybe it's just an idea that you're creating, I mean, you can use QuickBooks for it. The only thing that if you do register your QuickBooks, you have to actually have a legitimate company in order to register your QuickBooks. But if you're creating the company file itself, you can make as many fictitious businesses as you like. Right? It doesn't matter. You can even create one for yourself. But when you're registering it through Intuit, it will require you to have either a legitimate business, or you could say this is for your personal, and you have to actually have a real address. They're not going to chase you down and ask you to pay for the program or anything like that. They just want to make sure that when they hand out these products, that it's not just going. They just want to make sure that when you do register it could be a potential for you to file your taxes. So again, that's what the purpose of QuickBooks is. Anyways, let's go ahead and move forward. So we talked about the start date, and we talked about whether to understand, are we doing fiscal year or are we doing calendar year? All right. Once we have those things, which is step number 1, then we could go ahead and move on and starting to create our company file. Step number 2. So, as I've mentioned before, if you don't have an idea or don't know what you want to establish your company as, that's fine. You can go through this step, this easy step interview, and create your business along the way. But ideally, you want to avoid that because you don't want to spend too much time on this. So once you want to actually start utilizing and creating the company file, there are 2 ways you can set up your company file. You have the express start and you have the detailed start, also known as the easy step interview. So this section is going to be down here. The detailed start, or also known as the easy step interview. Now, the difference between the 2 is going to be based on your expertise in the program. All right. So if you are utilizing the express start, you're building your company from scratch, meaning you are an advanced user and you know exactly how to manage QuickBooks and set up how you like it without having to make adjustments or anything like that. You're able to create the lists that are included into the QuickBooks file, but also set preferences the way that you want it. So again,
like an accountant or somebody would be doing that?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. So someone who is experienced with QuickBooks, know what they're doing, or maybe this is they've created the company file for the 50th time, and they know exactly what to do, or they exactly know how to set it up, or how to set preferences. So again, the Express Start is going to be for advanced users of QuickBooks. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you a little note here because I'm going to show you how to do both ways. All right? But first off, before we can go through the Express Start, I want you to experience what it's like to go through the Detailed Start or the Easy Step interview, because ideally, all these questions that are going to be asked through the Easy Step interview is essentially how you're going to set up your QuickBooks company file and how to set up preferences. So if you are inexperienced or a beginner to QuickBooks, they do highly recommend you to go through the Detailed Start or the Easy Step interview. Okay, you can use either or. Usually, it's it's easier if you just go ahead and say Easy Step interview, just because again, it's literally setting up your company through a series of questions like an interview, and it goes step by step. So pretty straightforward. Okay, so when you download your QuickBooks 2018, it will you will have the Detailed Start and the Express Start. Okay, so however, because I am using QuickBooks 2019, they made a slight adjustment right here. Okay, so here I am in my home page, right? So when you open up QuickBooks and you don't have an available file right away, this is usually the first thing that you're going to be looking at. So as you can see in my little window here, I have a list of QuickBooks files that I've recently used or recently opened. And I have the option. I can either create a new company file or I can open up an existing file. So whether it's one of those three, as remember, right? I'll go ahead and press it so you remember what it was. The three is we're going to either choose to open up an existing data file. We can open up a backup file, or we can open up a portable file. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and click cancel because I don't have this file just yet. I need to create a new one. So I'm going to go ahead and click create new here, and this is where it begins. You have two options. So as you remember, right, we have the easy step, the easy start, and we have the detailed start. In 2019, which it's just a reference point because it's similar in context, or when you navigate to start up your window, it's generally in the same location. So in my 2019, my Express Start is just the start. It's just start. Okay? So yes, that's the change of difference here. For your detailed start, it's located in this general area. It says detailed start down here. For me, yes. For me, in 2019, I actually have to click on this drop-down menu, and I would have to go through advanced start. So that's the difference between 2019 and 2018. So again, you are being tested if you are for the 2018. You need to know it's Express Start and Detailed Start. For me, 2019, they're in the general same location, except mine is a little different. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and use the Advanced Start, and that's your Easy Step interview. So once I click on that, here goes the window that allows me to go ahead and begin. Right here's your little progress of how many questions you've gone through the interview. And if for any reason that you do leave at any given point in time right now, when you try to open up this file, if they've created it, of course, then it comes right back to this. But if you leave at any given moment in time and they haven't created a company file for you, unfortunately, you have to go through this series of questions again, and you have to re-enter it everything again. So it's kind of pro and con. If you leave the if you leave the interview at any given time, you you may or may not be able to get back into this Easy Step interview to complete your file. Okay, so for example, you'll see at the end or the midway point before you set the preferences, it creates the company file. Okay, but if you haven't reached that point yet, and let's say I stop here and I decide to close my window out, I have to do it again. It's not going to save anything. Okay. So yes, so it's a little downside there. So here, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So go ahead and follow with me on this page right here, the page 348, and we're gonna go ahead and fill in this stuff together. So first things first is you're going to need your company name. So this is actually really important that you need to know because your company name is basically what you want to name the file. It's separate because the second line here asks us what is your legal business name. So the reason why there's a difference between here is because one, if I wanted to, I can, because the company name is whatever I want to name the file, I can name it my company. I can name it Bob's company. I can name it your company. You know what I mean? I can name it whatever I want because this is going to be the title or the file title that I'm creating it under. However, the next line is going to be what your actual legal business name that you filed to the state with the actual business license. What is your legal name under that? So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say this is Academy Photography because again, that is what we're creating. We're creating a company file for Academy Photography. Academy Photography, and you can even shorthand this if you'd like. It doesn't really matter because again, it's whatever you want to title this file. However, the legal name must match your business license. So if it says on your business license that you are actually Academy Photography, Incorporated, make sure you list that in there. So that's what it says in the book, that it is actually incorporated. Okay. All right, once we have that, then we move on to the next portion. Now, the next portion asks for a tax ID number, okay? So again, QuickBooks is primarily geared towards to help you not only keep track of your business transactions, it makes it help you file your taxes a lot easier. Right? Because if you enter in your tax ID number here, what's going to happen is that throughout each section when we fill out our forms or fill out our transactions, it will take certain line items in order to pull and be able to create and help you file your taxes a lot easier. But also for a tax ID purposes, it's not required. You can skip this part if you don't use the QuickBooks for tax purposes. But yeah, so you're not obligated to enter in a tax ID number. It just helps in regards to this. Yeah, I believe that is it 1-1. I'm in the wrong box. 11-1234567. You need to have 7 numbers. 7 numbers at the end. I think that's it. All right. And then it's also important that you have a street address. Now, of course, some businesses you don't actually have to have one. It's not going to stop you if you don't have a business address. This is just for in case you do have one, that they can, it makes it easier for when you're trying to send stuff out or if you're receiving stuff or anything like that. So if you have a business address, go ahead and put it in there. Most people would get a post office box if they don't want to, or if they don't have a legitimate business company, like they work at home and they don't want to use their business address, or they don't use their home address, they'd rather use a P.O. box, you may do so as well. But in this case, we do have an address. We do actually have a location as well. So in this case, it is going to be 123 Main Street. City. City. I forgot what the city is. What is it in the book?
In my book, let's see. It's got city is Pleasant.
Pleasantville. Pleasanton.
Pleasantonville, yes.
Yes. Pleasantonville. One word, right?
Just Pleasanton.
Oh, Pleasanton. Sorry, my bad. All right. State is going to be California. All right. So Calif
94566.
5. Oh, sorry. Thank you. 566. All right. Country is going to be United States. Phone number.
925
925
555 quad 11.
Perfect. Quad ones, perfect. Fax number, it's up to you if it's necessary to have a fax number. I know most companies, they do have fax numbers if they're trying to, fax over important documents that need to be signed. Does it have a fax number? I don't think it does.
It's the same number except it's 1112.
Okay, that's right. 1123. Okay, so 1112. All right, and then email address. Is it info?
At academyphoto.info.
Oh, academyphoto.info. All right, and then of course the website is obviously going to be www.academyphoto.info. Okay. So again, if you do have a website or anything like that, go ahead and place it in there because again, this is legitimate your business. You don't need to put your personal email in there unless when we set up the owner section. Then yes, go ahead and put your personal email there. But in this case, this is just a general website and a general email that you're expected your customers or your clients to do. So again, I'm going to go ahead and click next. So now it's going to ask me what kind of industry I belong in. So this is what I was talking about. There are a lot of different industries that you can exist in, okay? If you're in construction, then you belong in the construction. If you're a restaurant, legal, whatever it is that you can categorize yourself in, right? In this case, we are art, writing, and photography, right? We take photos. That's the whole point of Academy Photography. We do either some kind of form of art or some kind of photography. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. So the next question here is, what organization are you establishing yourself as? So in this case, there are a total of 5 business organizations that exist in general, right? We have a sole proprietor, we have a partnership, we have an LLC, we have a corporation, and we have a non-profit organization. Now, of course, here it says that under corporation, there's different types of corporations. Now, I'm going to tell you this. It's a little key factor here. Corporation. The difference between an S Corp and a C Corp is just based on how you're getting taxed. You're not a separate entity whatsoever. You still function both as corporation, but the only difference is how you're being taxed. That's the only difference between them. It's not a complete different entity at all. You guys are still the same corporation. Just one of them you file taxes for both personal and income, where one of them is just income. All right. And of course, nonprofits one of them, and other is pretty much if you are maybe like an independent contractor, you're not really a business, you're not really a business, but you act as if you are a type of business, but you're not established as one. You can also do hobbies, right? If your company becomes a hobby, then you be falling under the category of other. But most common ones that you see are either the top five. And I believe we are established as an S corporation. So if you'd like to know more details about what the different types of businesses are, go ahead and go check it out either at irs.gov, or you can go ahead and just type in the different types of business organizations on Google.
Okay.
Right? Yep.
I used to work for once back at the Indiana Credit Union League, I used to work for one side of the business was a not-for-profit, and the other side was an LLC.
Perfect. So you're kind of familiar with that subgroup.
There had to be two types of accounting going on all the time.
Absolutely.
Profit, the other side doesn't.
Yes.
Expenditures on that side, but this side is over here is what's bringing in the money.
Yes. Yes. So that's why it's like it's very important on what you want to establish yourself as, and of course, in order for you to even be able to get those kind of titles, you need to make sure that the information that you're placing in here reflects your business license, because your business license is going to tell you everything you need to know about your business. It's going to tell you what you establish yourself as. Are you corporated status? Are you a sole proprietor? What's your tax ID number? They're going to give you all that information on your business license. And the documentations that come after, besides the certificate. But yes. So the next step here is to now go ahead and establish what kind of fiscal year you actually are going to proceed with, right? And in this case, again, we talked about the difference between a calendar year and a fiscal year. It's based on when you file taxes, and that's why QuickBooks needs to ask you this question is so then it will help you file your taxes much more easier, and it will keep records whenever you need it to be. So in this case, I believe I am doing calendar year, so my fiscal year is going to start on January, as we all know. Okay? Next. So now the next question is going to be to set up a username and password. Now this is because here's another note that I have to mention here is that when you're creating a company file, you yourself, the person that's creating the file, is going to be admin. So whoever your accountant is or whoever the owner of the business is, they should have full admin status, right? Because they're the one that's creating this file. Normally, it would be your accountant, because your accountant would also know what accounts needs to be used, and et cetera, et cetera. So they would have full access to this QuickBooks file, and they're going to be the ones that can either manage and create other accounts for the other positions that need to have access to the QuickBooks. So they can create other positions such as like your HR, your sales section, your purchase, your inventory manager, whatever it is, and they can also create how much access levels that they can have between that. And we'll talk about that when we set up our users. I think we set up our users in chapter 7. If not, I think it is chapter 12. Yes, anyways. So in this case, usually what happens is that when you're going through the Easy Step interview, sometimes you're writing things down, you're going through a lot of paperwork because you need your business license, you need to have all the information ahead of time. Once you're doing that, and you've set a password, the one thing that you have to remember is that, well, what happens when you have to access the file again and you don't remember your password? Okay, so the biggest thing here is when you're all set and you're done with this entire setup, that's when you can go ahead and establish your password and your admin user code. In this case, so right here, when I'm doing my interview, I can skip this section, right? But when I close my profile or when I close my company file and I attempt to open it up again, the first thing it's going to ask you is you need to set up a user name and password. Reason being is because, again, when we're adding in details, especially when it going into QuickBooks, not only are you adding legitimate information, we're gonna be taking a look at entering in your bank account, sensitive data such as your the information from your customers, their addresses, their phone numbers, their credit card numbers. So every time you keep building and building your company file, you're adding more and more sensible data. And of course, you don't want those sensible data to be available to anybody. So that's why it's very important that you password protect it, and QuickBooks will not let you proceed any further. Once you close your company file and you haven't set it up a password yet, it will not let you proceed until you set a password. So know that as well. And every time you open up a company file, you have to enter in the password. So that's a little tedious thing there, but then again, it's definitely protecting confidential information, and it also prevents from fraud from happening, because the only people that have access to these passwords and all this information is whoever's working at the company. Okay, so again, I'm going to go ahead and skip this just because, like I've mentioned before, I'm not ready to set a password just yet. Okay, so now here you go. It tells me that I am ready to create my company file. So I'm going to go ahead and click that next button, and now it's going to tell me where do I want to save it. So again, in order to save it, I'm going to go ahead and place it in a folder that I can recognize. So again, that's also one of the reasons why when you're dealing with this, that oftentimes you can't just access the file by clicking on the file. You have to have the program, and you have to open up the program, and when you open up the program, you have to enter a password. There are too many loopholes, especially when it comes to accounting, that people want to make sure that they safeguard everything that they can, so that they can prevent the fraud from happening. So I'm going to go to QuickBooks class, and I'm going to go to the QuickBooks portable files, and here, oh, I guess I forgot to create a file for this class. So I'm going to go ahead and create that right now, or a folder. And I'm going to name this PM QB QuickBooks 2-8. All right. And I'm going to place this file in this category right here. Okay. And as you notice, when I save the file, it says Academy Photography. And that's exactly how I named my company file. So it automatically pulled the information from what I've entered in from the very, very beginning. Now, of course, you can change it here, and it's not going to change the setting in your interview. But again, that's what I originally wanted to name the file, so I'm going to keep it that way. Okay, and I'm going to click Save. And now this little window is showing you that it's creating the actual working data file. Okay, so I'm gonna wait for it to complete. So please, please, please. There you go. There you go. And then now it says, congratulations, you've created your company file. All right. And just to show you where it's located, again, if I were to go into my QuickBooks again, and I said QuickBooks portable file and I were to go to PM 28 right here, you're going to see a bunch of files that are related into it, but here it is, Academy Photography. My QuickBooks file has been created, all right? And all these extra stuff here are the things that, if you're familiar how data file works, these are things that help you prevent, when you have auto recovery. That's what these extra folders are for, or extra files are for. They're your temporary catch files. That's what they call them. Okay, but that's not something you need to know. All you need to know is I placed the folder in the location that I've designated it, and it's right here. Okay, so now that I've created my company file, then the next step I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start setting up preferences. So here I already went click the next button, and the first thing it's going to ask is, well, what do you sell? Do you sell services only? Do you sell products only? Or do you sell both service and products only? So again, this can apply to any of the 3 business activities that exist in business in general, right? You can either create a service, right? It's usually labor. So, for example, accountants, right? They go by the hour. That's a service because they help you. They consult with you on which way to do whatever it is, whatever it is, whether it's business related, okay? Or you could sell a product. Most retail stores or even manufacturing, right? They sell products. Right? So manufacturers, they sell their products to the retails and the retails sell their products out to the public. Or you can have both. So as for Academy Photography, we have a photo session, right? We have an actual live person photographer taking the actual photo. And then we also sell the products such as picture frames, et cetera, those kind of things. Okay? So in this case, I sell both a product and a service. Next question is, do you charge sales tax? They usually, and if you see this in orange, it says it's recommended that you do select that you do charge sales tax, because if most cases, and if not, usually all states have, or actually not all states, excuse me, most states have sales tax, okay? Whether you are an actual legitimate location, or if you are you work at home, you're obligated to charge sales tax based on whatever state that you are in. Now, there are some states that don't charge sales tax, but yes, for most cases, yes, that should be a automatic yes right there. Okay. Then the next question is going to ask you, are you going to be having estimates in QuickBooks? Now, again, estimates are similar to quotes, right? Oftentimes, your customers may call in just to ask for a quote, and it could be a potential lead to a sale, right? So if you're going to have estimates, right, they can call you and say, well, how much is your photo session? What if I did 3 hours? Blah, blah, blah. You guess, if you are, especially when you're doing a service type of kind of company, you definitely want to have estimates, because, again, it could lead to a potential sale. So yes, of course you want to have estimates. All right. And then, of course, it's going to ask you, do you want to use statements in QuickBooks? If you're going to have customers and if you plan on utilizing the invoices, then yes, statements are going to be definitely necessary. Now, of course, so when we do statements, these are pretty much released to each customer, right? If a customer has a list of transactions that they've done, or they asked you to do all of these, you want to also notify them, especially if you have them on accounts receivable. Like if they owe you money, right? Or you invoiced them, it's always good to let your customer know, hey, don't forget, you still owe me this much money. And you can also let the customer know what services that they've been provided for. So a lot of oftentimes what the statements are for is for customers to look, is this correct? Did I get billed for this correct amount? How much do I owe? What's my current balance? What's my credit limit if you have one? All right. So of course, this is definitely going to be a yes because especially because we will be looking at how to invoice. And if you have, again, invoices, you definitely are going to create statements. Now, again, the next question is, are you going to be using progress invoicing? So again, progress invoicing, right, is pretty much like it has to deal with your estimates, right? When you have an estimate, let's say you estimated that if you were to have, a customer calls in and they said that I'm having a branch opening for one whole week long. Are you able to do it? I need them for this hour, this hour, this hour, this hour, right? If that were the case, what progress invoicing does is they can break up each invoice or each, if it's a whole week grand opening, right? They can break up each invoice according by when they complete the job done, based on how much percentage did they complete. So I can, for this type of progress invoicing, is I can send a bill every day versus send a whole entire bill for one whole week. Okay, because they may call and cancel. Oh, I'm not going to have my branch opening for Thursday, things like that. So again, that's what progress invoicing does, is it allows you to take a cost or take an estimate and divide it amongst, divide it in much easier ways. Or if you have a long project, you can split them up and have the invoice paid for certain sections, and that's what this is. Okay, so most cases, yes, especially if we're dealing with some customers that may need us long term. Okay. All right, so the next question here is managing your bills that you owe. This question here is, do you want QuickBooks to manage it and keep track of them? That's the whole purpose of QuickBooks. You want them to help you keep track of your bills. So this is an automatic yes. You definitely want to use QuickBooks to keep track of all your bills and whatnot. So definitely yes, I do want them to do that. Next question here is, are you going to keep track of inventory in QuickBooks? If you sell a product, most likely you are going to need inventory. All right. And the question here is, well, are you going to, so instead of saying keeping track of inventory, the question is, are you going to have inventory? And in this case, we do sell a product, right? We sell not only picture frames, we sell cameras, we sell lenses, etc., etc. So yes, I definitely want to keep track of my my inventory, because I sell products. Okay, so next.
Are there any that actually do that you know of, that don't use QuickBooks to track their inventory, or do they have a whole another system set up for that?
You can, again, you can outsource your inventory if you'd like to. But of course, what QuickBooks actually does is it's trying to make it like a one program kind of deal that does everything.
Yeah.
So ideally, you can outsource. Like a lot of times when we dive into the payroll system, you can definitely outsource that, because again, if you're a corporation, you definitely want to outsource your payroll system. But for inventory, again, they try to build it so that it makes it more easier for again to just use QuickBooks as a one for all. So, instead of having like four or five different programs to be able to keep track of certain things, they're just trying to make it easier for you to just do it all in one program. So, absolutely, there are often times, especially when you're dealing with inventory at a grand level. So things like Walmart, for example, they don't just sell one product; they sell millions of products, and they're all diverse in every single way. There's produce, there's houseware, there's home goods, there's arts and crafts. You can beyond imaginable how many items they have. Now, would it be fair, or would it be great for them to outsource? I would think so, because they're dealing with a million inventory items. And again, it would be best if there was someone that could just, a team or a group or a company that could just go ahead and manage the inventory that way. So yes, you can outsource it if QuickBooks is not, efficient enough to handle all a million items, of course, then yes. All right. So the next section here is keeping track of time in QuickBooks. So this is actually very, very important, especially if you choose to bill your customers, or if let's say you do have employees, which will be the next question. You can use time to keep track of your projects, or for example, they can keep track of their time that they worked for the company, right? So this is definitely important, especially if you are a service type of company, because you definitely want to bill your customers based on time, right? So for again, when we talk about consulting groups, right, they go based off an hour. And if they go overtime, what happens is they get billed for that extra time, right? Because they're like, oh, I only set aside an hour for you, but you went over by 30 minutes, so I have to charge you for those 30 minutes. So same thing with therapy, or anything that has to do with a service. And if you keep track of time, that's exactly what it's meant for, is so then they can bill you for the correct amount. And again, for if you do have employees, right, they can use it as a clock system, especially if you have employees that are on an hourly, wage, right? They have to clock in and clock out. That's also the best way to utilize the time for. So in this case, yes, because again, we are a service company. We need to be able to have that. So then the next question is, will you have employees? If you click yes, what kind of employees are you going to have? Now, of course, because this is kind of weird, but in real life, 1099 workers are not your employees. So that's why it's a little weird that they have a check mark that you do have employees and 1099 are going to be considered them. No, absolutely not. Your 1099 workers are independent contractors that all you do is you just pay for whatever the job that they completed. You don't pay for anything for them. You don't pay medical for them. You don't pay Social Security. You pay absolutely nothing to them, and they take the money 100%. Okay, so 1099 workers are not your employees, but of course, with QuickBooks, I think they just wanted to save some space here. So they said that, are you going to have employees? Well, yes. And what am I going to have? I'm definitely going to have a W-2 worker. So those are your legitimate, either statutory or non-statutory employees. All right. And then, of course, we will have 1099. We will have independent contractors that actually do a couple jobs for us. So, yes, we will have those kind of things. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and click next. So now it says here we're going to be using accounts in QuickBooks. So in this section here, right, we're going to be looking at very, very, very general kinds of things here. Setting up the accounts. But we're not there yet. We're still through the interview. As you can see, we still have this. We're like probably 75% done. So we still have to go through a few more things here. Or actually, no, that's like probably like 90% done. We still have a few more questions that are go beyond, but this is to start setting up the accounts. So the first one is choosing a start date to keep track of your finances. So again, this is just saying when do you want to start actually doing your stuff. Again, if you are a new company, you can start any date potentially, but again, we said that if you're going to start, it's going to be usually the last day of the last month. But in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say beginning of the fiscal year. So as of January of 2021, as it says. That's just because, with QuickBooks, most of the transactions are going to pull up to the date as of today. And the great thing about QuickBooks is, yes, you can go ahead and retro enter in all your information based on the date that you want it to be. So in this case, I actually am going to use another date just because in this case, my fiscal year was way back in 2020, or when I'm supposed to set up this company, was actually as of, again, you always want to start as of December 31st of 2018 because you're starting fresh as of January 1st of 2019. Okay. I think that's just because, most of the stuff that we're going to be taking a look at is going to be referring things that happened in the past. Because I can't pull it forward, but that's okay. Like I said, that's a great thing about QuickBooks is you can go back in the past and enter in all your details as long as you set the date accordingly. And I'm going to go ahead and click next. So here is the generic chart of accounts. So this, again, the chart of accounts is a list of every single account that you can think of to categorize your transactions. So when we talk about debits and credits, right, if we're talking about the double entry system, we need to have an account that we debit and we need to have an equal and opposite account to have as a credit. So this is where it tells you here that because we said in our very, 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 very beginning of this interview, we saw that there was what kind of industry we belong in. And in this case, we selected that we were from art, writing, and photography. So, and then because we also said that we sell products or we also sell services, this is where it's just bringing it up so that you can get yourself started right away. These are generic chart of accounts. Now, this may not have every single account that you need in regards to it. And if you are a small business, what your general rule of thumb is, you should at least have a bank account, obviously. Your main items would be your inventory. You're going to have your sales. If you are renting a building, you're going to obviously have rent expense. So those should be your basic foundations of your accounts. And through this, right, instead of entering them one in at a time, here they've already preset on what should be recommended or what you can have in your generic chart of accounts. So instead of having to create every single one of these, they've already created it for you. And here we can choose whether we want to use it or not. So in this case, we have sales. Of course, we're going to have sales. Are we going to have merchandise account fees? I don't know what that is, but I don't think I'm going to have it. So just other things like that. Like, for example, are we going to have subcontractor services? I guess. So, and of course, these titles or these names, right? Because they're preset and they've created it for us already, you do have the opportunity to be able to modify them so then they fit your type of company. So you don't have to have again, this just saves some extra time because they've created the account for you and you don't have to punch in every single one individually.
So
And go
you
ahead.
wouldn't have to go back and review that at all?
You can absolutely, yes, you can absolutely.
Or should you, is what I'm saying. Just because it's picking them, that doesn't mean that's where everything should be at. I mean, it's not broken out the way somebody might like it to be.
Exactly. And if you wanted to, like I was just saying, if you would like to, go ahead and take the time and see what you really truly need. Because these, again, these are preset. It's your generic chart of accounts. If you see something you like, go ahead and click on it. Or see, like I said, right here, it's automatically assuming we should have rent expense. I don't have to create that again. It's already created for you because I selected yes, I will have rent expense. But for example, here, professional fees, I'm not going to have professional fees, so I can check mark it and say I don't need it. Okay? Same thing here, postage and delivery. I'm not going to have that. Office supplies, obviously, that should definitely be something you should have. Repairs and maintenance. I probably won't have that ever. So again, you can choose these so it helps you save time because the next section when we come back from the break, we're going to personalize and customize our chart of accounts to make it fit for our company. Okay?
Okay.
So here, again, do I need utilities, travel expenses, telephone expenses? I guess, why not? They've already created it for me. And again, once we go ahead and go through this and review what accounts that we could have, again, once we leave this page and we come back to the chart of accounts, we can build it however you want it. Okay. For this case, I could eliminate, I could say I don't need any of these accounts and just create it from scratch, right? And usually what happens is if you are a pre-existing company, you should already have a chart of accounts. And yes, you can export your chart of accounts using Excel. Again, that's more advanced for advanced QuickBooks users. So, but I'm going to go ahead and show you how to enter them in one at a time and that you can do multiple as well. But this case, like I said, that's more for advanced users of QuickBooks. But yes, so here's the generic chart of accounts. And again, you can edit them, modify them after this window here. But when you're currently in this window, no, you can only select potential accounts you could use or not use. You cannot change their titles or modify them right here. You cannot add any extra accounts that you think you're going to use. That's all saved into the next section after this, okay? So this is just giving you a head start on your chart of accounts, just to help you save some time. So in this case, I cannot modify anything until afterwards. I can only select what I think I will possibly use. So again, we got to take a look at some of them. And now that I've finished this section here, I can go ahead and click the next button. So then it says here, congratulations, you are complete with this interview. And then I'm going to go ahead and click go to setup. All right. And as it's working its way up, it's starting to format your homepage, and et cetera, et cetera. And then it's going to have this little setup here. So this is where steps 4 through 12 is going to stay. Okay. Or this is where chapters the rest of the chapters, right? This is where it's talking about entering in people, right? When we talk about entering our lists, it's going to be chapter 7, right? We're going to take a look at customizing our QuickBooks, but entering in lists such as your inventory items, right? And we'll talk about items in chapter 7, so tomorrow.
Okay.
But entering people, we get to take a look in that, right? We get to the first thing that we're going to learn in chapter 4 is we're going to be entering in our vendors. We're going to create our vendors list. Other than that, chapter 2 is going to be creating our customer list. Chapter 10/11 is going to be entering in our employees. So again, I'm not going to be able to deal with that right now. And then the next section here is going to be entering your products and services. So again, we're going to take a look at that in chapter 7, which is tomorrow. Entering what items that we sell and what service items we sell. Okay, so again, I'm not going to do that today. And then here it says, add your bank account. So let's go ahead and do that because that's definitely something I can do. Again, it's up to you. We are creating a fake bank account. You don't need a real one. But in this case, what am I going to title it? I believe it's going to be, you can use your actual bank account, like say national bank account. But in this case, I'm going to name it checking. Simple as that. You can have a checkings account. You can have a savings account. Whatever it is that you have for that bank account. And you are, in this case, if you are a legitimate company, you actually will be linking your real bank account here.
Mm-hmm.
So here, my account number, what does it say in the book?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, obviously your bank account is definitely not going to be that short. It's going to be, I believe it's 15 digits long, and it usually starts with 0. Of course, again, like I said, this is a fake fake bank account, obviously. And then the next question here on this very last corner is, what is your opening balance in your bank account? Now, rule of thumb here is you never want to enter in that much information when it comes to opening balances because there are a few rules and a few regulations that you need to know and have ahead of time, such as, we'll talk about that in a few minutes. You need to have your bank statement. That's your number one thing that you should have in order to be able to enter in an open balance because if you place in a random number in here, right, you're going to have to fix and modify it. And you have to know how to do that by making an adjustment, which again, the accountants are going to be the ones that are going to know the most about that. Okay. But in this case, we don't have our trial balance or we don't have our bank statement. However, I think we do have an opening balance, don't we? Is it 30? Is it?
It has nothing in the book.
Okay, perfect. Good. So that means when we do edit our information, because the most important thing is when we actually set up our opening balances, you can actually set it up through when we set up our accounts. So in this case, again, rule of thumb, especially when you're setting up your bank account, you should have the most recent bank statement available. Okay, so in this case, if I'm starting as of February 9th, right, that means the latest one would be my January 31st bank statement because that's going to give me the most up-to-date information on my bank account. But in this case, I'm leaving it as blank and I'm going to go ahead and click continue. All right, then the next step is, okay, thanks for setting up your bank account. Would you like to order some checks? So Intuit, what they like to do is they like to promote a lot of the stuff. They try to make it more convenient for you and they also want more money from you. So, you think this program is great, but in reality, no. They're just out to just try to get more money from you. So in this case, you can purchase their Intuit branded checks. But again, you can go to the local bank and you'd be able to buy the special paper from them as well. And of course, of course, you could go to the bank and they should actually give you a business checkbook for free. You don't even have to pay. You don't even have to pay Intuit to print these out for or to send you checkbooks at all. It should be actually free. So in this case, I'm gonna click no thanks, and I'm gonna go ahead and click continue. So once we're here, we're back at that same window again. So again, my window's it's a little small because the way I set it up. So I'm gonna try to yank this all the way to the top. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and click start working, because again, this is all dealt in chapter 2, 4, and 10. This one's dealing with chapter 7. So we can go ahead and proceed and click start working. So again, once I do that, now our, again, then there's another. So this is a little thing that happens most times. It just says that what's new about the QuickBooks and what can you do in regards to this, or was it the new features? I always exit out of that. I don't really care for the new features. So here you go. I'm at my home page. I got my icon bar. I got my menu bar all set up and ready to go. I got my bank account ready to go. I am ready to start working on my, business transactions. I can go ahead and get started. Okay. So that was how lengthy the Easy Step interview goes through. But as you can see, it was very thorough. So all this stuff right here that you're set up, it's to help you. It just helps you process a lot quicker, and it helps you. Again, for those who are beginners of QuickBooks, you don't really know what preferences you're going to be setting up. You don't know what things you're going to be setting up. All right, but as you remember, right? As we went through that interview, it asked us pretty much a lot of the questions that are in your homepage right now. They asked you, the first thing is, do you have inventory? Boom, you have your inventory right here. Do you charge sales tax? Boom, manage sales tax right there. Do you do estimates and progress invoicing? Boom, it's right here. Do you have employees? Boom, it's right here. Do you keep track of time? Boom, right here. All right. So a lot of the things that you're going through the entire interview is essentially to set up your QuickBooks in a way that makes it a lot more easier to manage. And look at this. Going through the interview, it allowed me to help set up my homepage. Okay. So, yes. So other than that, I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this company. So again, if for any reason you go ahead and choose to set the password now, you can go ahead and go up to your company on your menu bar. And right here, it says set passwords or set up users and passwords. So if I go ahead and click this, the first next it's another drop down menu is going to ask me to either set up users or actually manage my actual login settings. So if I click on login settings, then here you go. It's going to ask you to set up your password right then and there. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and click cancel because, again, there's no necessary reasons that I need to do that for. So, yes.
Right, because if you're working, it's not like you own the company. It's not like you're the accountant. If you were just the person working on the account setting it up, there's no reason for you to actually have a password. It's going to block everybody else out.
Absolutely. But again, like I said, once we close out of this company file and we decide to open it up again, it's going to automatically ask you, hey, before you can move on forward, you need to set up a password. Why? Our first sensible data is we just linked our bank account. So if anyone can have access to that exact file, they automatically can hack into your bank account and start paying for whatever they want to. So that's exactly why. But in this case, it's only if you remember to do it. But again, once you close this company file and you reopen it, that's the first thing it's going to ask you to do. hold up, before you can even continue, you need to set a password. So, but because again, we have Academy Photography as our throughout learning throughout this entire book. We don't really need to set it up just because you're going to be able to see it. But I do want to let you know that for any reasons that you do need to set the password up now. That's how you do it. You go to company on your menu bar and you can set up users and passwords right here. And you can go ahead and lock and secure your data file right then and there. So, go ahead, sorry.
I had a question. So, if you're doing this, you're setting it all up. Wouldn't you have to let your management or whoever's in charge of all this, wouldn't they have to know all your passwords?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
So what I'm asking is, if you got 40 people working under you
Uh-huh.
in an area, they've got to know everybody's passwords.
For the admin, you should be the only one that knows the password. But if you're setting up users, right? So you can I don't remember what chapter that is. I can't remember if that was part of this chapter or not.
Oh, okay.
To set up the users or not. I'll double confirm when I go do the when we go on break. But if you do need to set up your users, right? So again, there's many positions that you can set up. If you're the admin, you're the only one that can set up those users and those passwords. So for all of that, whoever is below you, they absolutely cannot know the admin password. That's just the chain of command.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as the admin, they need to know every single person's position. They need to know everybody's users, and they need to know all the passwords. So in that sense, yes. And of course, whoever the owner of the company, they need everything. They need to know everything because they need to also be able to look at the files to make sure, is my employee doing their job?
Right.
Or if, let's say, for some reason they're talking to their tax accountant, I need to know what your sales are. Okay, let me just log into my random account, and or let me log into my admin account, and boom. Okay. So, absolutely, just depending on the chain of command, some people do need to know them and some people don't need to know them. But I can just tell you, as far as right now, I just want to make sure that you understand that because we bypassed that in the interview, you're able to set it up afterwards. And if you don't set it up, it's going to require you to do it the next time you open up this file. And it will not let you continue unless you set it up. Okay, so again, it's just because of the whole, we just added in our bank account, that's sensible data. You shouldn't have your bank account available to anybody that accesses this. Okay, and a lot of the things that we'll talk about tomorrow is, well, what happens when we need to go ahead and customize the home page? Or let's say, for example, that once we finish the whole interview, question is, oh no, what if I need to make some changes to my interview? Unfortunately, you can't go back to it, so that's a downside there. But what happens is, what you can do is, let's say, let's go back to my homepage, right? I decide one day I don't need inventory. I decided to outsource it. Okay, so I don't need this inventory part at all. So what I can do is I can actually modify that by going to the edit menu bar, going down to preferences, and then it's going to be based on what category you are in, right? And we'll talk more in depth about these preferences tomorrow when we start customizing our QuickBooks. So again, I can go down to my inventory right here, make sure I'm on company. And again, I can deactivate, oh, hold on, I'm in the wrong one, in items and inventory. I can go to my company and I can activate that I no longer need inventory. I don't keep track of inventory. And once I do that and I click OK, to save my changes, if I go back to my home page, I don't have my inventory at all anymore. Okay, so if you've gone through the entire interview and you need to make those changes, you can always make those changes by going to your edit preferences and changing it there. Okay, so if I don't charge sales tax, I can definitely modify it there. Another one too is you should also know is if you do need to modify anything that's in regards to your accounts or setting up specific things like setting up the closing date and whatnot, that is where you're going to go to your company and you're going to go look through here to go ahead and modify whatever you need to do. So in this case, you can modify your users, you can modify your password, you can modify the closing date, you can have all of that there. Okay, so that's how you do the easy step interview. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close this company file because I want to quickly show you how to do the express start real quick before we go on break. Okay, so again, when we talked about this, as you can see, the easy step interview or the detailed start interview or detailed start was a long and lengthy process. But we got a lot done because it built the whole entire QuickBooks file for us, and it made our home page, it made everything a little more convenient for us. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do the express start. So again, for mine, it's just start. Okay. So once I click this, you may get a couple windows saying you need to log in. Of course, if you do that, you could go ahead and close this out. Hold on, let me pull this window up because I'm going to go ahead and click skip. Okay, so the first thing it's going to ask you is, well, what's your company name? Okay, so in this case, I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to make this one up. I'm going to say I'm Coffee Cafe. Okay, and then it's going to ask me, what industry do I belong in? So of course, I am a restaurant, so you can type it in, and what's going to happen is that it's going to have a drop down menu or a fill in tool. So here it says restaurant, cater / bar. Yes, that's exactly what I am. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Next thing it's going to ask you is, what type of business are you? In this case, I'm a sole proprietor. Next question is, what's your employee identification number? In this case, I'm going to say I am 12-1234567. Okay, so we'll talk, this is more for tax purposes, so if you know the difference between, I'm pretty sure you have because you said you've done a nonprofit and an LLC.
That's a long time ago.
Okay, well, it's different from a Social Security, but it has the same amount of numbers. The only difference is businesses, it's 2 digits, then 7. Social Security, right, if you're an independent contractor, it's going to be the standard Social Security, which is 3, 2, and then 4. That's just the difference. It's just a way to recognize that you exist. All right, business address. So again, I don't know. I'm from I'm 26, or let's do 2526 Flamingo Drive. It doesn't have to be illegitimate because it's not going to look it up. But yes, city, Las Vegas. Because again, this is a fictitious business. It's not going to look up this thing. In Nevada. Nevada. My zip code is going to be 89136. I hope that's an existing one. United States, phone number 702-555-1212. All right. And that's all you need. You just need all that information. And I'm going to go ahead and click this. And then here, I'm creating my company file. That's it. And in regards to Express Start. Okay. Now, because I've already saved my first company file in in my folder, it's going to it memorize the pathway, so I don't need to search or find my location. So there you go. Now it's opening up my company file, and now it tells me, well, what can I do? You're all set. Okay. You might get some pop-ups for advertisement because you're a brand new company, whatever. So here you go. Save money on this. Okay, no. Other things here says that, well, what you would like to do, Desk? You are all set. You can set up whatever you need to set up. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click start working. So again, that's it. And as you can see, your whole entire preferences have not been set up at all. Your company file has been created, but nothing else is set up. Your bank account's not set up, so as you can see, there's no bank account. Your information, nothing is set up for you. Even your chart of accounts, right? We talked about the chart of accounts. You're supposed to have a basic chart of accounts. They do have, I guess, standard because we said we are in the restaurant business. So here, we have restaurant supplies. But did I say that this is something that we need? Absolutely not. Again, they just, because you've signed up for the industry, they just throw in your generic accounts in there, right? They don't even know that you sell products. They don't even know that you sell services. You're going to have to create all that on your own. Okay, so that's exactly why it's more geared towards advanced users of QuickBooks, because that way, not only does it, you have to go ahead and, again, we talked about this, in order to set those preferences, you're going to go to your edit menu, to your preferences, and you have to go down this entire list and set up exactly how you need to set up your company file. So for example, do I have inventory and items? Do I keep track of inventory? Yes. Do I let's see what the next one is. Do I charge sales tax? Okay, yes. Okay. Do I charge sales tax? It's automatically, yes, I do. Okay, hold on. All right, I don't need you to tell me that. Preferences, yes, I do charge sales tax, yes. Other things, you're going to have to just set it up accordingly. Time and expenses. Okay, yes, I'll save this, changes. Do I keep track of time? Well, this one's already clicked yes. All right, and I click OK. And then I click yes, apply these settings. So as again, when you come back to your home page, you're going to notice that because you're answering all the questions that were in the Easy Step interview, but not actually going through the interview, again, it makes it a lot quicker because, again, the Easy Step interview, we had to go through a series of questions. And when it comes to being able to know exactly what you want to have done, you don't need to have to go through the interview. You can just complete it on your own. I clicked OK, and I clicked OK. Okay, I don't know what's going on.
Don't you love that?
Yeah, I can't even click anywhere else. I already clicked OK. Okay, I'm gonna click cancel. Let's see what happens. There you go. Now I can finally go access this. So here I go to my home page. Now I have my inventory set up. I got my time set up. I got my sales tax. I guess my sales tax, that's the one that didn't go through. That's my sales tax. Yep. So, again, that's the difference between going through the detailed start and the express start. One, you have to go through a long series of questions, but it helps you build your company file as you go. This one, again, is for more advanced users that just want to just create the company file and just go in and go straight and set it up how they want to set it up right away. But again, as you can see, which one's more work? They're both on the same line of platform, right? It's either I have to set up everything manually, or I have to go through something to help me set it up. They're both time. They both take a time to do both ways. So whichever
Yeah, so
one
I was gonna
benefits
say,
for yourself.
they're pretty much equal. You got to go
Exactly.
in, look up everything, and and
Absolutely.
those decisions. Yeah, it's just as equal.
Absolutely. So, yes. And yep. So, I that's it for that section here. So, right now it is 3:06, 3:07 now. So, any questions?
Just a quick one. Am I going to be doing any hands-on with this?
For this one, again, you have to have the program in order to do hands-on. For now, because it's usually the first week. I'm gonna be showing you how to do it,
Okay.
and
Okay.
then next week is where I'm gonna ask you how to do it. Okay, so hands-on. For this first week, it's mostly I'm showing you what to do.
Okay. Because
Mm-hmm.
I do have the QuickBooks Premiere already.
Oh, perfect. Yes, if you'd like to follow along, you may do so. So, in this section right here, so I'm gonna pause this real quick, or I'm gonna stop this real quick. And what's gonna happen